Hi, my name is Astrid. I have a PhD in 17th century art history, which is way more useful than you'd think, really. I've worked as a policy officer, an exhibition curator, and I've run an art gallery. I've also worked as a ministerial advisor, and now I'm a CEO. I also have a long-term severe mental illness, and that's something that a lot of people wouldn't immediately realise about me when they meet me, because I'm really lucky that I was able to essentially hide it enough to get a really good education and also work, and I've worked pretty consistently throughout my adult life. Not everyone with mental illness is so lucky, but there are still people like me who do manage to hide their illness. One thing I'd say about that is that you don't just hide it from other people, you also hide it from yourself. It took me a very long time, until I was in my mid-30s really, to even realise that I had problems. When you're a child, it's just how you are. Your inner experience is your own, and you assume that everyone is as unhappy and afraid and distressed as you are. You grow up and you spend all of your time coping with a life that seems incredibly hard and distressing. And as life goes on, you start to reach for things that might help. So for me, by the time I was 30, I was drinking really heavily. A few years later, I was also taking a lot of prescription drugs. And without knowing it, I was really using these things to try to just keep everything down, keep functioning, and ignore the growing distress and problems that I was having just coping with life. So my first psychiatric admission actually was when I was just past 40, and it was for alcoholism, because I was drinking so much that really I was probably going to die if I didn't stop. I got clean from alcohol and drugs very quickly and felt fantastic, like I'd aced it. I'm so competitive. Unfortunately though, and this is a really common experience, when you do stop drinking and stop taking drugs that you've used to self-medicate trauma and distress for a long time, all of the stuff that's been lying underneath can come up and just explode. And that's what happened to me. It overwhelmed me. My life went down the toilet. I had 7 psychiatric admissions in 3 years, and they were to manage out of control symptoms of complex PTSD. Things like hypervigilance around people, which made it impossible to be around people. Flashbacks, which were incredibly distressing. Dissociation, where I just lost whole periods of time and wasn't aware what I was doing. Things that actually made it very unsafe for me to be in the world and made it impossible for me to live independently at times. It took a long time to get through that stage, and mental health therapy and treatment is really about helping people to get through the worst stages of their illness. For me, I was fantastically lucky and I got good treatment, but I still go up and down a bit. So recovery isn't really what you think it's like either. You can never quite get rid of stuff that's happened to you. You are the person that you are. You just learn to live with it a bit more eloquently. Diagnosis. Diagnosis is a really weird word. The more you come into contact with the mental health system, the more diagnoses you collect. So the first diagnosis I got in my 30s was a generalised anxiety disorder. A few years later, it was substance abuse. Then as the substance abuse wasn't a problem anymore and other stuff started to come out, I was diagnosed as having a borderline personality structure. That's a highly stigmatised term, and I started to notice a real difference in how medical professionals related to me. That was really distressing. The last diagnosis that I got, I suppose when my problems had become pretty clear, was complex trauma, which basically means that I suffered really severe neglect and abuse in my childhood in a way that has permanently shaped the person that I am. Of all of those diagnoses, the one that I'm most comfortable with is complex trauma. For me, that's the only one that actually starts to point to why I might be like this. It relates cause and effect, and that's helpful for me. Because when I experience symptoms, which I do sometimes, I still have flashbacks and moments where I feel very distressed, I can think to myself, hold on, this is something that happened in the past and I don't need to worry about it anymore. It sounds really simple when I put it like that, and I can't convince myself all the time that it's fine just not to worry. It's a very, very long process. I would say, though, that everyone has a chance at recovery with good treatment. It's fantastic if people understand a little bit more about how complex and difficult mental illness is and how frightening it is to have a mental illness, which you often don't understand when you've got it. I think people with mental illness, like me, really all they want is to be treated with compassion, with empathy, with some respect, just to be treated like you would want anyone to treat you if you were standing in their shoes. Thank you.